Gentlemen, welcome to Development Review Commission for September 10th, 2019. Glad to have you all with us. Tonight we have with us on our commission a little bit of a rotating cast. We have to my left Commissioner Andrew Johnson, Commissioner Philip Amorosi. Sorry, I get one name wrong every time, please. Commissioner Philip Amorosi, Commissioner Scott Sumners. I am Chairman Dave Lyon. To my right is Commissioner Michelle Schwartz, Commissioner Don Casano, and Commissioner Tom Brown. For city staff, we have with us tonight, says here Ryan LeBake, but he's not here. We'll give him credit for being written down, though. Saparna Dasgupta, Obina Kingsby, Blake Shimke, Joanna Berry, and let's see, Diana Kaminsky. Did I miss you? There you are. Okay. That seems right. All right. So, folks, our purpose statement. The Development Review Commission is created to hold public meetings and hearings to provide analysis and recommendations to the City Council regarding general land use policies and applications where the Commission has recommendatory power, and to render final decisions on specified applications where the Commission has final decision-making power, including but not limited to all aspects of a proposed and future development. The Development Review Commission recognizes that the creation of a desirable environment throughout the city for residents, business, and industry is a prime requisite for the interdependence of land values, aesthetics, and good site planning by promoting harmonious, safe, attractive, and compatible development that is therefore considered to be in the best interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. And any person aggrieved by a final decision of the Development Review Commission may file an appeal to the City Council within 14 calendar days after the Development Review Commission has rendered its decision. And also, Development Review Commission recommendations to the City Council are not final decisions. They are recommendations. Folks, our agenda tonight is going to be a little bit abbreviated. On our consent agenda, we have 3 items. If anyone here wants us to hear those cases and make comment on those, we can pull these cases from the consent agenda. Those 3 cases we have are BH Properties, The Center, Salad and Go, and Sentient Tattoo Collective. Is there anyone here that would like to have one of those cases heard rather than being passed on consent without further mention? All right, seeing none, we'll keep our consent agenda as written, and that leaves us with 3 cases to hear tonight. We will first hear the Roosevelt, and then we're going to make an alteration to the order just to make things a little more roll a little smoother. We will then hear what we have as item 8, which is lot 2 for Tempe Market Station, followed by item 4, which is lot 4 and lot 6 of Tempe Market Station.
Chairman, also just to remind Commissioner Lloyd is here for the agenda item 3. Right.
That's right. So as I said, rotating cast, and I neglect to explain, one of our commissioners is going to recuse themselves for the Roosevelt, and sitting in for them will be Commissioner Barbara Lloyd. All right, so let's first hear a motion on our consent agenda. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion for approval of the consent agenda as read.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Casano and seconded by Commissioner Amorosi. All those in favor by show of hands, please. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So let's move on to the Roosevelt. And we'll invite our applicant to come to the podium and tell us about your case.
Good evening. We were last here in front of you, gosh, 4 or 5 months ago, May, I believe it was. Had a few issues that we needed to work on, so we've been spending, believe it or not, it's taken this much time to get back here in front of you, but hopefully we believe that we've solved all of the problems at the time. Do you want to start going through the slides? Sure. Hopefully, there we are. If you recall, mainly the issues centered around the north property line on the site in relation to the SRP irrigation line that runs across the property, location of that, repairs to that, adjacency to the properties on the northwest and the northeast. We did have meetings with the owners on the northeast of the property that were at the last meeting. We came to some agreements with them regarding landscaping. We made adjustments to the buildings on the west side of the property. You want to kind of help me
Yeah.
discuss some of the changes?
That's correct. We've actually moved most of the northern property buildings back away from the northern boundary
To the
to-
south.
to the south to create a larger separation between the properties. This has allowed us to provide more landscaping and a denser landscape buffer.
I'm going to flip through some of those.
You can see here I have the landscape plan in front of me. We have a great deal of large, tall bushes that grow upwards to 13 to 15 foot, along with some tree plantings where we can plant them outside of the SRP easement to buffer and screen the buildings from adjoining neighbors to the north.
And all of the plants that are within the easement have been agreed upon with SRP in multiple meetings that we've had with them over the last couple of months.
Correct, yeah, and those are all on their approved planting list.
On the west side, there was comments about having more of a front porch kind of feel along the street. So we did modify those buildings in the middle there to create those porches.
That's correct. So now we'll have direct access from the streets via sidewalk to the front door of those units of fronting both Roosevelt and Wilson.
You can kind of see the shadows. There you are. How deep are those patios, would you say?
8 foot,
8 feet deep.
plus or minus as they jog in and out. And this would be from Wilson Street. We've also chosen to go with the ghost gum tree, as you see here. It's a little bit taller, provides good shading, and is not invasive like the Cicero tree that we had currently previously planned. So all the Cicero trees are removed from the project and replaced with ghost gum trees, along with some other variety of trees and planting of bushes in between.
Keep going a little bit.
You can see in this slide, we actually have a deck and another lower porch to access building one's unit fronting Roosevelt Street. You can see in this slide, we have added shade screening to some of the windows for added privacy for both this development and adjoining neighbors. Let's see if we got another good example. We've also enhanced the landscaping to provide green screen. You can see in the middle left-hand image, that gray screen goes up, will be planted with a vine growing planting that will grow up to its full height. It should be about 24 feet in maturity.
That was part of the discussions with the property owners on the north, on the east side, on the, I forget what you call the condos.
Santa Carla.
Santa Carla, yeah. They just wanted to see more green. So that was kind of what we came up with, and they were appeased by that.
And you can also see that we added more screening on the windows for privacy of use.
Right.
Those are the floor plans. Let's see, I want to go to one more slide right here. On the upper balconies, we'll be providing a screen on the far left-hand side, which would face towards the north to block that visual screening as well.
And that was discussed with the property owners to the north as well. What else?
I think those are our main topics. I mean, as far as parking, surface parking's allowed and agreed on with SRP, so we wouldn't be losing any parking spaces. We're within the development standards of required parking.
That pretty much covers our changes. Open for any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Brown.
On attachment 13, that's the elevations. The windows look nice and big. Some of these are operable, correct?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So does the entire unit window open, or are there some additional patterns?
Which elevation would you be?
Well, like the bottom one of those three. I'm looking at the black and white version on attachment 13. So the windows are almost the size of a door, which is a nice big window. But is there some additional aluminum or whatever?
There could potentially be some additional mullions to provide, say, a single hung window in lieu of a casement.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. I'm just want to be sure that these in fact have some operable windows.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we will have operable windows both for light and ventilation, and emergency egress out of the bedrooms.
Okay. When you were here before, I was kvetching about access to the roof. These are for sale, correct?
Yes, correct.
If I buy one, can I get on my roof to clean the gutters that are clogged with leaves and plastic bags?
That would be accessible from the exterior.
You mean with a big, like a extension ladder or something, not an interior hatch?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not sure if anyone else thinks. I mean, that wasn't that big a deal to me. I thought it was a good idea, but if you're inclined to not do it, I think I can accept that as your choice. Thank you for your answers.
I feel like you're scoping out your next property. Pick out the right one. All right, other questions, comments? Commissioner Summers.
Just a question. There's several non-standard conditions of approval for lighting and for CC&Rs. Have you reviewed those? Are you on board with all that?
Yes, we have reviewed those and we are on board. Our lighting designer is relamping several of the fixtures to bring the lighting levels down as stated in the condition of approval. So we'll meet all those criteria. And both the CC&Rs will be established with the HOA.
Morosi.
Yes, I remember back in May, there was discussion because we didn't know what your property line was going to be, that maybe taking out some units so it wouldn't be as dense, because it seems like you still have 5 units that are tandem parking in there.
What we were actually able to do was shift the building on the northwest corner of the property to the south, approximately 6 feet.
Yeah, so building 1, which would be in the upper left-hand corner, moved down 6 foot plus, providing 16 foot plus to the property line. The building right in the middle of the project moved down 3.5 feet to provide a greater buffer there as well. And the others terraced back.
So that, like, on the west side of your property, there's 3 units that have tandem parking, and there is the possibility that all 3 of those might want to leave to go to a ball game at the same time or something, and they're all going to come out and have to shift cars around to get that car that's in the front of the garage.
That would probably be
You don't care because you don't live there, right?
Well, that would be a maneuver that could likely happen. Tandem parking is allowed per the development standards. And we're not asking for a use permit to provide tandem parking.
Right.
I mean, I think that's something, part of the whole allure of urban living is not having to have cars. So, I doubt all of those units will have 2 cars in there. I mean, I would hope a lot of them would be bikes and motorcycles or scooters or whatever have you.
We've also provided double the bicycle parking spaces, both outside and interior to the garage units.
Just worried about
encourage-
the tandem parking for private property. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions, comments? All right. Well, I have one. I've been a little reticent to do this because I feel like I'm taking a second bite at the apple because we saw your project before. But it didn't occur to me until this go around. I like the project. I think it's a good project all in all, and I think you've done a nice job solving the challenges. Those constraints, create a nice project, I think, the way you've handled it. The one concern I have, which I'm not sure if I should make a flap about or not, but I'll just raise the question, is architecturally speaking, if I owned one of these and I was to tell a friend who was going to come visit which one was mine, it would be difficult to describe it in a way that they could tell from the outside, oh, it's clearly that one. It looks to me from the elevations that the features of the architecture support a building broken up into masses, but don't delineate in a way that's one unit and that's where it ends and here's the next unit and that's where it ends and here's the next one. So I'm not sure if I should make a flap about that or not, but I wanted to ask what your feelings are about that, and if that were to become a consideration, would you work with staff to make those separations a little more clear?
From a color or signage standpoint, or what are you?
I think there's a lot of ways to do it. It could be color, it could be massing. My thought is, since these are for sale properties, I think most people appreciate the sense of that part is mine and that part is theirs. And when those lines are a little indistinct, I feel like maybe it's not as powerful and maybe it's not serving the owners quite as well as it could. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me your thoughts, please.
You want to go back to some of the elevations?
Yeah, sure. Just to touch on the site plan, if I was to give somebody direction on whether they were coming from Roosevelt or Wilson, I would speak to making the second right or the second left, depending on which direction they would be coming in. So they would know which driveway to go down to, and it would be the second unit or the third unit in line to give them the directions. We've also placed the building numerals for the dressing above or next to the main entry door that will be highly lit from a recess can down, so that you don't got light glaring in your face, but yeah, you can see the address sign well.
Okay, so I'm not actually concerned about whether I could get someone to my door.
Okay.
My concern is sort of the sense of ownership, and does the architecture reinforce, I bought that piece. Can you see from the outside where your property ends? Can you tell this piece is mine and that part is not? Because I think that is something that people really value, and I mean, we know that a lot of the sort of failed utopianist architecture out there had the problem that, it was all fine and good, except that people didn't like the idea of what I own is indistinguishable from what everyone else's is. We live in this giant suburb of this is mine, and then there's a wall between me and you, and I can clearly see. So I just wonder if maybe you could serve your property owners a little better if there's a way to make it a little more clear where one unit is and where the next one is, so you can, well, maybe you understand what I'm saying.
I think I understand where you're going. I think the 2D elevations don't really do it any justice, because I think if you saw it in perspective, there really is a lot of articulation as far as where the walls are in and out from a vertical standpoint that you're just not seeing. And so
I think the plan supports it.
I think it does. Yeah, I think it does. With the only exception, in this example, maybe being the bottom one where you have the two, that kind of share the pop out, but the doors are pretty distinct, right and left on those. The two end units to me read, 3-story units pretty clear, especially given that the doors for those interior units are going to be much farther back, right?
All right.
I think the 2D elevation is kind of throwing you off, but I understand where you're coming from. I also think color-wise, these are not very, it's hard to represent it in elevations, but there are different colors between the sections of the building.
Okay, fair enough.
I think in person it'll read better than what you're seeing here.
Well, like I say, I don't feel so passionate about it that I want to make a big flap, but I did want to raise the question. Thank you.
That's a valid point.
Anyone else, comments, questions? All right, well, thank you then, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Kaminsky.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, Commission, Diana Kaminsky, Senior Planner, City of Tempe. So you're familiar with the site and the zoning, and the use permit for the increase in height was approved at the previous hearing. So tonight is really the focus is on the design. The applicant's gone over the site plan. They have shifted the buildings to the south on the west side. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly since you've already gone through these and get to pointing out some of the differences on the elevations. So the ones that you see on the right have circles around the changes with the addition of canopies, the changes to the front porches on the first floor, changes to window location and size, and then the screening on the balconies on the upper floors. So these were some of the changes they made. The observation regarding the unique identity of each unit is something that I brought up in preliminary site plan review and had actually asked about changes to color of the buildings previously. So, even something as little as changing front doors or garage doors to have options for owners to have more individuality in the selection of those parts of their building would be something that they could consider. But we weren't able to get a change in palette between buildings or even the massing of the buildings themselves. But that was something that we discussed earlier.
Can I interrupt here and ask, do you feel satisfied then regarding that issue?
Well, I think we're kind of far down that road. I always advocate for owner-occupied product to have a unique identity because that sets it apart from a condominium or apartment feel. They reassured me, as they did tonight, that their design, and it is in character with other projects similar to this. The fact that this is a reflection of something that was previously approved to the south of it makes it hard for me to argue too strongly. But,
Right.
so.
Well, we can give the next project heck, right?
Sure.
Sorry, please continue.
So they also added some shade canopies over the upper windows that they mentioned. So again, I just kind of circled the changes that were made to show you the previous and the proposed changes to the project. The focus primarily was on the units that would be viewed to the north of the site and then also to the east and west on the perimeter of the property. Stop me if I'm going too fast. It's building 6 and then building 7, which faces Wilson. So there on the lower right side, you can see the front porch concept that they have facing the street. And the renderings, which they already presented. So we do have some unique conditions of approval. The lighting is something that we wanted to make sure that it was sensitive as a single-family product and not overlit as some of our multifamily projects have to be for safety. We do feel that it is a safe environment in the way it's being designed, but wanted to create more of an ambiance. So we do have a condition related to that. And then the condition of approvals for the CC&Rs actually is something that we have in the bulleted section. A lot of that is requirements of code anyway, but it also addresses the units having garages where you're parking in the garage. You're not going to be using the guest spaces as your primary parking. So when you have a tandem unit, you have to use it for your parking area and making sure the trash cans get taken in at the end of the day. So we did not receive any other calls of inquiry or concern on this after our hearing back in May. So staff is recommending approval and be happy to answer any questions.
Commission, questions? Thank you, Ms. Kaminsky.
Thank you.
All right, at this time we have a moment for public comment. If there's anyone with us that wishes to make comment, we can accommodate you with 3 minutes. All you have to do is fill out a white card on the side and we can give you an opportunity to speak and express your thoughts and opinions. Anyone here with us that wishes to make comment? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section. And let's see. If our applicant would like to respond to what they've heard from the city, they certainly may. All right. Just didn't want to rob you of any opportunity if you had an additional thought. Okay, Commission, what say you? Mr. Summers.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to go meet with SRP and figure out the answers to the questions that I think we were all fuzzy about. That was the one issue that really stood out for me. The neighbors to the north were, I think they were not comfortable with where we were, and I'm much more comfortable with where we're at right now. The fact that you created a new building type and fronted it on Roosevelt's a bonus, I think. And as someone who just took out 3 sisus in my house, good move. Do not put 10 sisus. So, thanks.
All right, other thoughts? Commissioner Brown.
So I was sort of down on the design the first time it came through, but I will say that it looks better. I think maybe because of the fact that the long building that's already there is a building that's almost too long, and these are superior. And also this design is better than a couple other projects we've seen the last couple of times. So that doesn't make it, that's kind of an odd way of making it look better. But in reality, a 3-story dwelling on these tight lots is a tough design problem. And you have really effectively, I think, broken up the planes. I would like some more colorful front doors, but I hope that the CC&Rs aren't so strict that people can't express themselves like my neighborhood CC&Rs. So I support the project. Thank you.
Oh, we have a motion.
Chairman,
Commissioner Kazan.
I would make a motion for approval of PL 170380.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
All right, motion to approve as written from Commissioner Casano, seconded by Commissioner Sumners. All those in favor by show of hands, please. And the motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right. And we will thank Commissioner Lloyd for her service. All right, so let's move on to Tempe Market Station.
We're doing item 8 first, right?
Correct,
First,
item 8.
4, okay.
Say it's a little awkward. I feel like I'm being very rude looking above you as I'm talking, so I don't mean to be. When you're ready, Wendy Riddell with the law firm Barry Riddell. It's my pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of Tempe Market Station, 6750 East Camelback. Staff is pulling up the presentation for me. I think we had one that broke it apart, just one. There we go. That looks familiar. No, it's actually all of them. So if we could go into presentation mode, that would be great. Wonderful. Thank you. And then I advance it with this. Okay. So as we talked about, I'm going to first discuss a little bit the P80 amendment, the DPR for the hotel, the use permit for the hotel, and then we'll follow up with kind of the other retail components of the site. I suspect you're familiar with the site here. It was quite an assemblage on my client's behalf a few years ago. In fact, I believe it was the site of one of the original brothels in Tempe, I am told. But there were quite some characters, Tempe Crane, all of those sites he was ultimately able to assemble. You also know, I'm certain, that this is right across the street from Tempe Marketplace, as well as we have Rio 2100 and all of the activity that's going on there. And of course, we're part of the Smith Hub and really the gateway to that hub here. So the current entitlements we obtained back in 2016, I think many of you were on the DRC then, and we rezoned that site from Ag and GID to PCC to PAD. At the time, we did have 4 drive-throughs and a use permit for fuel sales over there on the eastern portion of the site. We viewed it as kind of a convenience type of development. Since then, we have been encouraged with what has been going on with the Smith Innovation Hub and talks with economic development, and they have encouraged us to look for a little bit of more intensity and density here. Working with a hotel group, we now have a hotel, intercontinental hotel group that would be developing the hotel, and that's what's prompted us to come forward and request this amendment to the PAD. So I know there's a lot going on here, but just to give you a kind of a high level view of what the changes are, of course, we're adding the hotel, removing 2 of the drive-throughs, and then adding a restaurant there at the corner, and removing the fuel station also for some additional retail. So the proposed amendment to remove the drive-through, the fuel sales, really responds to the additional height and density, again, requested at Smith Hub, which is why you see the hotel that we're requesting here. We also thought, since we've spent a lot of time here, even as a group, looking at the Urban Core Master Plan, it's important to point out that what we're proposing here is consistent with what is contemplated in that document. To be regionally competitive, Tempe's innovation hubs must include required amenities, retail, shopping, dining services, and art at intersections, which is also part of this application. I think it's also important to point out that this is because it's kind of one of those entrances to the Smith Innovation Hub. It really does make sense that that not be a fuel station, that that would be an opportunity for a sit-down type restaurant and some retail, and we've taken that into consideration here. So again, the fuel station, current entitlements, and we think that there's perhaps a better way now. You see that lot 5, you see that restaurant. We have worked with economic development. We've worked with Rebecca Rothman with art. We know that they're working on kind of a broader branding art concept for Smith Innovation Hub. We're happy to work with them and have provided for the opportunity for that to exist at that hard corner, again, at that kind of gateway to the overall Smith Innovation Hub. Of course, it's also important to point out this is consistent with the Apache Character Area Plan and for Tempe's vision of a 20-minute city for complete streets. One of the things that's changed since the last time we were here is that we're now giving 14-foot for a streetcar easement along the front of that property. There's going to be a new bus turnout. There's going to be a new bus pad over on Smith Road. Also working with transportation on the realignment kind of in and out of Tempe Market Station, again, into the Smith Innovation Hub. So with regard to the P80 itself, probably there's kind of a lot of little refinements, but probably the most important one is the request for additional height, of course, to accommodate the hotel. You'll see that we go from 40 to 60 feet. Really, we've starred all the other places, there are changes. I think perhaps the only other notable one is that south side reduction from 30 to 10 feet. I will tell you that's not because of the hotel, but behind the hotel, if we're going to do something with the pool area, if there's some sort of covering or porte cochere or roofed element, we wanted to take that into consideration, that that itself could be closer. And you could see that here when you look at the hotel where that pool element or where there's like a pool house, that is what we're contemplating being a little closer to that south property line. So the hotel itself, the architect with the hotel is here. They can tell you a little bit more about the brand as well. It is Intercontinental Hotel Group. This has been developed in many other cities. This would be the first one developed here in the Phoenix marketplace. It's got a health and wellness type of theme. So for folks that come in, it's centered around health and wellness, and that's the idea behind the hotel. And certainly, if you want to hear more about that, we'd be happy to tell you. To give you an idea of the colors and materials, you'll see that the items over kind of 4 through 7 are sort of part of the brand image for the hotel as well. And then briefly, just to touch on the use permit criteria, Diana did her normal, very diligent job in the staff report outlining each of those criteria and how we meet those criteria. But it's important, I think, because you're considering that use permit to demonstrate that we have done that here. Does not carry any significant vehicular pedestrian traffic in adjacent areas. Actually, because they were drive-throughs before, and what we're comparing now, it's actually a reduction in traffic. Does not cause any nuisance. I don't think anyone here would suggest that a hotel was a nuisance to this area, particularly when we're replacing an old brothel. Does not contribute to the deterioration of the neighborhood, conflict with the goals or objectives. Again, I think we've demonstrated how we're consistent, compatible with the existing and surrounding structures, and does not result in any disruptive behavior that may cause a nuisance to the general public. And then lastly, if I could proceed, I'll just kind of lump it into one on the DPR, or would you like me to stop there?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of story, but we're going to consider item 8 first in terms of motions.
Certainly. So in terms of the DPR now for lots 4 and 6, lot 4 you'll see right up there at the entrance along Rio Salado. And then lot 6 is the retail component. So we know in terms of time, we do know this will be a phased project. We know the hotel is ready to go as quickly as they can. We also believe that lots 4 and 6 are likewise ready to go. And this can give you a good idea of what we think the look and feel of those will be. We were asked in working with, I think it was mostly economic development more than staff, to kind of give it, more than planning staff, kind of industrial feel, to have it kind of have that tie with the Smith Innovation Hub and what has kind of historically occurred there. Then you see lot 6 as well. So with that said, we're in agreement with all of staff's proposed stipulations. We had a neighborhood meeting where, frankly, nobody showed up. Best kind of neighborhood meeting to have. And we have not had any concerns from anyone expressed. And so with that, I would respectfully request your approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, Commission. Comments, questions? Let's first deal with the hotel piece.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. So if the theme is wellness and active lifestyle, what do you do? And I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for your team, but what are you doing with the location and the proximity to what's around it in Tempe?
Great question. I'm going to let the hotel folks answer that directly.
Okay. Here, I'll also flip back to the rendering if that's okay. So you may not have come across even yet because I think there's less than 20 of them built, but it is a health and wellness centered hotel. Some things that influence the architecture of the building, they want to have the gym prominent, so that's our pointer on this. Like this would be a gym that's visible. They also want to encourage people to use the stairs. So we're proposing, a glass stair tower with some sort of interesting sculptural element running down so people are encouraged to take the stairs rather than the elevator. And that should be an interesting element, especially at night from the street. Did you ask more about in relation to the site?
Just curious if you're trying to make connections up to Town Lake and recreation paths and things like that.
Yeah. Well, there are great connections. Everything is walking distance into the mall, and the mall is very pedestrian as well. Be close to the walking along the river and everything. So it's for the site. I think there's a lot of connections to walkable areas. Yeah. And then in terms of the actual design itself, even wants a balance of sort of composed and calming elements, and then also sort of active and energizing elements. So we feel that the sort of, rather than popping up and down too much, having a very composed facade, but then with this sort of playful window mullions and pop of color that's addressing their needs and also maybe tying to the college and, having something a little more fun and active and playful.
Casano.
You have really nothing to do with the interior of this or the exterior, really. Will it be, well, with the exterior, yes, but not with the interior amenities or any of that. That's up to the hotel. Am I correct?
Yeah, they have standards and we're allowed to adapt them, but obviously within reason.
Yeah, but
they want to stay on
you can
brand.
talk about the outside and the environment there, but I think we'll leave that up to the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Amorosi.
Just as far as, I don't know, I'm not familiar with the hotel chain as far as their sustainability efforts. Can you speak on that?
That's a good question. I do know that that's an aspect of all of the IHG Intercontinental Hotel Group, that they have a Green Guard program. I think that has to do mostly with specifications. I'm not sure as far as like HVAC or that sort of thing. I would have to get back to you.
So you don't know if those shade screens in the front are solar panels or?
Oh, no, they're not. It's a perforated metal is what we're proposing. Yeah. Yeah, they don't go as far as to have solar. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a question, if I may. You've spoken to sort of a simple architecture you described as calming, I believe. And I'm wondering about, in connection with that, on the facade of that larger brown mass we see at the front of the rendering, there are 3 pop-outs. And I think in truth, I can't figure what those would be in plan. Do you, if you have a thought as to what those are specifically?
Yeah, the grills for the VTECs are there.
Say it again, please.
The grill for the VTEC, the air conditioning system. You know, commonly hotels have like the horizontal element that's, you know, by your window on the ground. This is more of a vertical thing, and then that mass is shared between 2 rooms, basically.
Okay.
So the same space is used for the unit. I could show you better in plan, I think, but yeah.
That's okay. No, I mean, the fact that you have an answer makes me think that that's not just something that was put on there and we can expect to go away.
No,
That there actually is a reason for that. And so that makes me feel that that articulation is going to stay.
Yes.
All right, so that's good.
Yeah.
I would just like to comment that I think the idea of a hotel in this location is a very good one. I'm completely in support. Commission, other questions, comments? Commissioner Brown?
So you mentioned the stair element being exposed, so it's playful and people realize there's a stair. I assume that there's a similar stair at the northwest corner. Obviously, long hotels have stair walls at the end.
Yeah, the other one isn't glass. I think it would just be like a masonry core is what we're proposing right now.
So I thought of this when Commissioner Amorosi mentioned something about sustainability. You really might want to take some of that stuff out front and turn it into something that shades that's facing east, and it's a lot of glass. It's going to be hot as blazes. It's just a minor comment. I guess we're not really getting into the nuts and bolts of your design, but it's a long building. But of course, you're in a neighborhood of very long buildings, and it's a lot of parking out front. But again, that's a neighborhood with a lot of street activity. I mean, street traffic. So for a hotel, perhaps being pushed back like that makes sense. So no real problems supporting it. I just saw a lot of glass there, and it's been really hot this summer.
I understand. I guess overall, in terms of the design, you know, we placed this near the gym and also more towards the interior of the site. On the other end, it gets to be kind of the end of the site, I believe. Yeah, basically, there's one fast food chain, but basically, this is our other stair tower, and the glass one is here.
Right.
So yeah.
Will the first floor have some rental units, or was it all meeting space and breakfast place?
So there's
Cafe.
a gym, there's general lobby. They have a healthy restaurant called Court.
There will be a little restaurant there. Oh, that's probably a good spot with the mall across the street.
There's also a buffet.
Thank you.
Well, I will just chip in that I've had some thoughts about that stair as well. You have some code issues to solve and so on, but I'm confident you can handle it in a way that's suitable. All right, other questions, comments? We asked to hear it, so Commissioner Amorosi.
Just want to say I like the hotel idea a lot better than taking out some of the drive-throughs. I think this will serve Tempe a lot better than 2 more drive-throughs. Thank you.
All right, then we will thank you. We'll come back for the other case shortly. So let's see. Diana.
Good evening. Diana Kaminsky, City of Tempe Senior Planner. What you're looking at right now is the amended planned area development, the use permit for the hotel, and the development plan review for the hotel. As Wendy had gone through the drawings, I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. You're familiar with the site. This is the P80 itself showing the site plan and the standards, which Wendy also went over. They've worked very closely with traffic engineering on the changes along Real Salado Parkway, and that did affect the location for Lot 1 of the fast food restaurant and the drive-through, I think, on Lot 3 a little bit. And they're now working with traffic engineering on Lot 5 and the changes to that intersection at Smith Road for the alignment of Smith Road. The landscape plan, they did make some additional changes from the previous design that was based on staff's recommendation of street trees, both along Smith and Perry. So they have more diversity in the palette and provides more shade on the street fronts. It's pretty dense in terms of the canopy on the campus overall. The hotel elevations, some of the unique features, I don't know if those elevations show it as well, but you were asking about these elements. The grate or the vent for the rooms are actually on the side, which is kind of a unique feature that we haven't had on other hotels. They're usually located at the bottom of the windows in front of every unit. The other thing that was unique is that power element here is this rippled metal on the material board. You can't really see it very well, but it's actually a custom panel. That's a metal panel that's rippled to catch light in different angles. So that was something that we thought was kind of interesting. And then they had a lot of pride in their canopy with the perforated metal and the shade, but not a full shade, providing some sunlight into that area on the north side of the building. We do have some unique conditions. The issue with lots 5 and 6, we don't know which one will develop first, but they would be the ones that would be affected by the realignment of Smith Road. So in working with the applicant and traffic engineering, we have this very long condition that basically says at the point that the first lot develops, they need to coordinate with traffic engineering and the property owner to the north, which is Vestar, to make sure that they're still moving forward with that alignment at the point that they're doing construction. So we want to make sure that the street trees and the parking lot trees are single specimen. They are using a tree that traditionally tends to be a multi-trunked tree, and the issue with those in parking lots and along sidewalks is the vase shape of a multi-trunk tree affects the pedestrian area. So we've asked for those to be either a high breaking multi-trunk or a single specimen, a single trunk specimen in the parking lot where there's cars parked, so people don't have to duck to get out of the cars. We have not received any public input on this, and we're recommending approval with conditions.
Okay, questions for staff? Commissioner Summers.
Just a question on process and how this is handled. When you have a large development like this and only 2 or 3 of the lots of 6 in this case, or 8 previously, are developed, who makes the call as to where the perimeter is and what you have to do? And is it just a 6-inch curb or a wall and you have to screen and all that kind of stuff? Is that a construction? Is that a building plan, the building department call?
Talking about for the individual lots or the perimeter access points?
Within this property, 3 buildings are going to be developed and the rest is going to be dirt.
Yes.
So how do we make sure people don't go and just park on the dirt? How do we make sure that it looks decent and it's easy to navigate? Is that handled in plan review, or how does that work?
Well, usually there's pad sites, and the individual pad sites are dirt that has a dust protectant on it, and there would be curbs at the ends of the rows of parking. So somebody would, presumably you could jump the curb and park in that area. Beyond that, I don't think we would expect them to fence all the individual lots. But we do require dust control and that there's traffic control within the site, so it's clear where cars are supposed to go.
Are you concerned about baseball parking? People are going to end up parking there?
Nope.
I think a good example is 2100 Rio, where they have individual pads, and I haven't heard any issues with those sites that haven't been developed yet. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we come to public comment section. Is there anyone with us that wishes to make comment on this case? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section. You are welcome to rebut staff if you wish. Ms. Riddell?
We agree. So, unless there's specific questions.
Okay. Commission, thoughts? Commissioner Johnson?
I think this is a great improvement over what was previously approved. Sometimes something will come to us and we'll approve it and I'll get frustrated because it takes so long for it to actually get built. In this case, I'm glad it took longer and I think we have a much improved product. I think the use of the shade structures and the awnings throughout what was proposed is a really nice touch for pedestrians. And I'll offer a motion if we're ready for that.
Any other comments first? Let's have a motion. Commissioner
Just very
Saunders.
quickly, I appreciate the durable materials at the street level. I mean, it's split-face block all around except for one little piece. And that's great in any building, especially in a hotel. So appreciate it, and I'll be supporting.
Commissioner Johnson.
I move for the approval of PL 190138.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion to approve from Commissioner Johnson and seconded by, I will say, Commissioner Amorosi. Thank you. All those in favor by show of hands, please. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So let's just roll straight into item 4. Do you wish to say anything further about it before we hear from Diana again? Okay.
Chairman, was the second by Commissioner Casano or Commissioner Amorosi? Casano.
Sorry, did I say it wrong? Motion from Commissioner Johnson and seconded by Commissioner Amorosi.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kaminsky.
Wish to have a presentation on the design as well for this?
If there are things you wish to tell us about lots 4 and 6.
They made changes to the landscape plan based on some recommendations that we made. We're really happy with the changes that were made. The only conditions that were unique to this were the same ones that were on the previous project in terms of the trees along the street front and within the parking lot for the single trunk trees. So we're recommending approval. I did not receive any comments or inquiry from the public on this one either.
Questions? Commissioner Amorosi.
To me, it looked like the design of the front of the retail on lot 6 is different from what was approved back in, and which is fine with me
Yes.
because that looked like it was from the 90s actually. And
They changed the materials and the colors significantly from the previous design.
okay, and I'm with that. That's good. That's a good thing. Now, I had another question. I don't know if it has to do with lot 5 and that hub signage thing. Is that going to be the restaurant's responsibility? Is that everybody's responsibility, or is it just property? How does that work?
They were required to provide a 10 by 10 area for something in the future, whether that's art or a gateway sign feature. We're not sure yet. They're working with. Add to that. Okay. Sure.
We actually had quite a few meetings because the idea of branding the Smith Innovation Hub just is in its infancy. And so we all agreed that putting something there made a ton of sense, but nobody's too sure yet what that will be. So we have decided when we come back for DPR for that restaurant, hopefully that branding process will be further along. I understand from Rebecca in Economic Development, they're actually going out to an RFP to try to figure out exactly what that's going to look like. We're kind of hoping that's happened. And so then we'll be able to figure out what that corner piece will be. I think ultimately it will be the developer's responsibility.
Okay, so the restaurant won't have that burden on top of developing the restaurant. That'll be the developer of the whole properties. That's his, because it'll probably cost at least $100,000.
Certainly that's, yeah, I think it's going to be the developer's responsibility, but the specifics will be determined when we come in with that site.
All right, great, thanks.
Other questions for Ms. Kaminsky? Commissioner Schwartz.
And then just to confirm, so the lot 4 retail has no drive-throughs, but the lot 6 has one drive-through lane?
It actually has 2. There's a restaurant drive-through on the west side. Can I pull up the? That's a really bad quality image. So on this side, you have a drive-through lane for pickup for the restaurant, and there's a patio here. And then there's a drive-through here for either dry cleaner or bank on the east side. And it's tucked back. There's that landscape, flanking both sides of the drive there.
Okay, other questions? Thank Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Kaminsky.
you.
All right, is there anyone with us that wants to make comment on this portion? All right, we'll close the public comment. Ms. Riddell, you're good. All right, we're good. All right, comments or motions? Commissioner Amorosi.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve PL 190140 as written.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Oh, all right. Motion to approve from Commissioner Amorosi and seconded by Commissioner Brown. All those in favor by show of hands, please. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all our agenda items. Mr. Parner, do you wish to give us an update on future cases for 2 weeks from now?
Chairman, would you like me to repeat the agenda for September 24th DRC?
In fashion?
Sure. We have one DPR case for Roosevelt Corner. We have 3 standalone use permits and 2 use permits and DPR for Agave Center in Valvoline, Tempe. And then we do have a PAD with DPR for Sixton College and a PAD, general plan amendment zoning, PAD and DPR for Park Broadway.
Okay, so stay tuned in for that meeting. That's going to be an exciting one.
That's here again.
That's correct.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you.